Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Poor Richard's Cafe and Star Local Media. Poor Richard's Cafe, Plano's oldest restaurant since 1973. They are open daily from 5:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., serving the three most important meals of the day: breakfast, lunch, and dessert. It is true Texas home-style cooking made with love and grit. That is Poor Richard's Cafe, located off of Avenue K in Plano. Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and I am being joined by Justin Thomas and Brian Murphy. Gentlemen, on today's podcast, we're going to continue our discussion, our series of mid-district progress reports. On Monday, we touched on Class 6A girls basketball. We're going to shift classifications, keep it in the girls' side of the hard court. We're going to talk some 5A action today. So we're recording this on Thursday, so we'll at least include, when we're talking records and stuff, the games that were played on Tuesday, so a lot of these districts will be at the very least one game past the midpoint, but nevertheless, just kind of size up the progress of where our 5A schools are at as we close in on the home stretch of the regular season. So let's start out, Denton ways with District 8 5A at the midpoint of the season, or just past the midpoint. Your standings have the Colony ran the table, still undefeated, atop the district at 7-0, 2 games up on Lake Dallas in second place at 5-2. You have a logjam between Denton ISD that clarified a little bit on Tuesday, but you have Denton in third place at 4-3, Braswell at 3-3 in fourth place, Denton Ryan in fifth at 3-4. And then in sixth place, you have Justin Northwest at 2-5, and Little Elm bringing up the rear 0-7. Justin, obviously the story for this district has been the continued dominance of the Colony. Nothing new given what the Lady Cougars have done in recent years, but this particular iteration of the Colony, just talk a bit about what has contributed to them just running roughshod over this district.
Well, you got to start with their backcourt. Yeah. Their juniors, Jewel Spear and Tamia Jones.
Former guests of the podcast.
Yeah. They're both playing really well right now, and Jewel Spear is just playing out of her mind. It seems like every time I look at the box score, she's right at 30 points or somewhere around there. I think she's scored 30 in 4 of the last six district games. Came up a little short last night against Little Elm, had 29.
Let's get it together.
But and she got, I saw them just before the holiday break against Denton Ryan, and she scored 20-something in one quarter. Last night, she scored 17 in the third quarter alone to get to her 29. Saw them last week against Braswell. She scored 30. They're rolling along, but honestly, some of their results have been a little closer than I might have expected. They beat Lake Dallas by 4. That Braswell game I just mentioned, Braswell actually had a 3-pointer at the buzzer that could have tied the game. They missed it and lost by 3. And then, kind of expecting a blowout last night with first place Colony and 7th place Little Elm.
Whoa. Little Elm was up.
Quite. I said expecting a blowout.
Don't count out my Lady Lobos.
But yeah, Little Elm.
I will not take any Lobo slander on this podcast.
Little Elm had
this aggression will not stand, man.
Actually had a 20-16 lead on the Colony at halftime before Spear had that 17-point third quarter, and they outscore them 29 to 5 or so, and to really kind of pull away. But yeah, I wasn't expecting much of a game last night, and definitely got one. So Little Elm acquitted itself well there, but Colony still gets the win. They're at 7-0. No, I don't think anybody's going to catch them for this district championship. I think it's just a question is if somebody can trip them up and put a loss on their leisure. But looks like they're in pretty firm control of this district right now.
With that performance that Little Elm was able to, the brief scare that they were able to put into the Lady Cougars. I mean, Brian, I know obviously the district record is not what Little Elm would have hoped at the midpoint, but how does that performance kind of work in conjunction with what Little Elm has shown elsewhere throughout the district schedule?
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't shocked at that performance of just in half against a team like the Colony. This is definitely a rebuilding year for the Little Elm girls, at least.
Because 2 years ago, they were hanging right in there with Jade Williams at the Colony and Jordan Oliver at
So they graduated Kaviana Barber and just a handful of girls. I could just keep listing girls and on and on and on, but their entire starting lineup were seniors. And so they were kind of set for, that was kind of like an all or nothing type year. And that was 2 years ago, what you were alluding to. And they've still kind of been in rebuilding mode since then, they're still trying to figure out some pieces. They have a bunch of sophomores, a bunch of freshmen playing big minutes, some juniors. So they're still trying to figure out an identity. They're 4-19 on the year, 0-7, like you said, in district play. A year they'd like to forget, but they'll be back. They're under good leadership in head coach Kim Oliphant, and this won't be the last of the Lady Lobos.
They played well. They played well and hard last night. Then they just couldn't get out of their way in the third quarter, and the Colony's full court press just killed them. There was a stretch where Spear made a layup and then stole the inbounds pass on 2 possessions in a row. So she scored 6 points in literally like 4 seconds. And that was just the story of the third quarter. Little Elm seriously might have had 15 turnovers in that quarter. Like, they could not hold on to
That's a lot to do with inexperience.
Yeah,
a lot of girls that don't have a lot of varsity playing time, girls that
and
that
one
don't.
of their other better players, it might be a concussion that she has to do the testing obviously today and stuff, but she left in the middle of the game, so that didn't help their cause either.
If there is a team that at the very least, going by the standings, is best positioned to catch the Colony, it would be Lake Dallas, simply by virtue of win-loss record. Lake Dallas currently in second place at 5-2. And as we mentioned, they played the Colony fairly well that first time around. And that was, at the start of the stretch of district play, Lake Dallas was kind of a tough team to figure out, because we actually, shout out to us, we actually did project Lake Dallas as the second best team in this district, but then they start off district play 0-2. So you're thinking, oh, well, crap. Because the story of Lake Dallas this year is there's not a single senior in that starting lineup. There are 3 freshmen, however, to complement, their veterans, Dorian Norris and JoJo Elliott. And that has kind of been the, so that's the story of this team this year, is just kind of what strides those, they're promising freshmen, wasn't sure, due to it's just, they're in that position they are because head coach Catherine Madison sees a lot of promise in those players. Players like Mackenzie Buss, Georgia Elliott, who's JoJo's younger sister, and then their center Allie Buchanan. But nevertheless, when you are putting those kinds of minutes on freshmen, and it's because it's not a big rotation that Coach Madison rolls out there, not a huge roster by any stretch, you're going to go through the inevitable growing pains, and you kind of got to see that early on. They lose a game at the buzzer essentially to Justin Northwest. 45-43, a Northwest team that we're really sure what to make heads or tails of to begin the season, and then they turn right around though and give the Colony a respectable game too. So but ever since that 0-2 start, things have gone obviously in their favor. They've won 5 straight. Their average margin of victory during that district winning streak has been 14.6 points. So they're taking care of business, handling things as you'd expect for a team that at least carried itself with expectations of being one of the better teams in this district. Ultimately, though, that Northwest loss is probably going to loom a little large because they get the hey, look at the schedule. They get the Colony on Friday at Lake Dallas. Could potentially return the favor and hand the Colony their first loss. But even then, that just puts you a game back at the Lady Cougars, and you're needing the Colony to trip up again in order to tie them. So ultimately, that Northwest loss could be what keeps Lake Dallas from being able to truly threaten for the district title. But at the very least, they've been able to overcome that. And based on their recent results, it looks like the number 2 seed is very much within reach.
Should be an interesting race for that, which Denton School gets left out too for that 3rd and 4th spot. I was pretty impressed with Braswell when I saw them. I think they're going to get one of those 2 spots.
Okay. Let's shift gears to talk about another district that just passed the midpoint, this one being 11-5A. Let's talk some Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD, which I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've mentioned Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD, at least in the basketball iterations of this podcast. So,
I believe you are correct.
And hey, but all 3 schools are in the hunt for a playoff spot, including a couple that are just a couple of games back of first place. So at the very least, let's run down the top 5 standings, or at least the ones that pertain to the CFB ISD schools. You've got Highland Park, which is doing the Highland Park thing and just rolling over everybody in first place.
Safe to say the district is theirs. They haven't even been challenged yet.
So yes, Highland Park at 8-0, very much on their way to probably running the table in that district. You got a second place tie between R.L. Turner. Shout out to R.L. Turner. At 6-2, tied with Woodrow Wilson. You've got Newman Smith, 1 game back, 5-3, and then Creekview in 5th place at 4-4. So just 1 game out of the playoff mix are the Lady Mustangs. So Justin, CFB is your neck of the woods. Just kind of what do you make so far of what that school district has been able to offer up in 11-5A?
Well, I think the first important thing to mention when you're looking at the standings is Newman Smith's in 4th, but they're the team that has played Highland Park twice already. So. A lot of other teams have another loss basically guaranteed coming on their ledger. I don't see anybody beating Highland Park. Like I said, they've just been dominating this district. They beat Creekview by 60, like just for example.
Goodness.
But yeah, so yeah, I would say Turner's kind of a little bit of surprise. Smith was looking really good, but they have some injuries and some, off the court issues that are going to drastically alter their lineup and rotation during the second half of district. So, talking to their first year coach Samuels over there, he was really pleased with how they were rolling along. But this is going to change things up a little bit, and we'll see if Newman Smith can hang on to a playoff spot. Looks like Creekview might be the challenger. Mm-hmm. But when you look at Creekview's results against the top 4 teams, they really haven't been that competitive. So, they're going to have to beat Newman Smith and pick up a game somewhere else to get to that 4th spot. I'm not sure if I see that happening. So it looks like Smith is going to hang on and Turner's going to get in there. Turner is probably the one that's positioned best of all of them.
I should have thought that at the start of the season. Shout out to Earl Turner. So between that and what the volleyball team did, say, hey, things are finally shining bright on the Turner athletics program.
Amazing what happens when you get out of that district.
No kidding.
I was just about to say that.
Because, you do think for comparison's sake, they were those 2 years in District 14-5A where you're staring down heavyweights like Prosper and North and the Colony and whatnot, and now it's, they're finally, in a district that's, a bit more to their weight class.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see, let's shift gears and talk a little District 13-5A. This one is out Mesquite ways. Some East Texas schools in the mix as well.
Everywhere.
So this one, So this one, at least I got the standings at least as of the entering the week. So for the midpoint, you had Mesquite Poteet all alone in first place. They ran the table the first half of district play at 6-0. North Forney, one game back at 5-1. Lancaster, depending on how you pronounce it, 4-2. Kaufman in 4th place at 3-3. West Mesquite in 5th at 2-4. Forney in 6th place, 1-5, and Terrell bringing up the rear, 0-6 in 7th place. Yes, there's a nice little basketball resurgence going on out of Poteet High School, and the Lady Pirates they've looked the part of the most dominant team in this district. They're of those first 6 wins, their average margin of victory 26.2 points. So blowouts left and right, although I will not go so far as to say that they've got the district title just wrapped up like Highland Park appears to over an 11-5A, because they do have a 4-point win over North Forney, second place team on their ledger. That was a game that was tied entering the 4th quarter, so you'd still think that the rematch between Poteet and North Forney would be similarly competitive.
Yeah.
And but nevertheless, though, Poteet with a 1-0 lead in that head-to-head series and in position to, at the very least, capture the district championship. And if they do so, it's going to be on the strength of one of the top 1-2 punches in the. You got to think in the area. There's not too many teams that have. You can say their top 2 players are averaging almost 32 points per game at the at the girls level, and that's what you have out at Poteet with Tajane Perry, who's averaging 18.2 per game in district, and Amaya Briggs, who's averaging almost 14. Those two have carried the load most nights. They'll get a chance to potentially lock up the district title for good on Tuesday, I believe, is when they will host North Forney, in a chance to I guess put the nail in the Lady Falcons coffin for sure. But you look at a team like, so I just mentioned Briggs and Perry and what they're averaging, almost 32 points per game. You look at a team like West Mesquite, which is on the outside of the playoff picture currently. A couple games back of a playoff spot. If the Lady Wranglers are to make a second half charge, it's going to require an uptick in offense. At the very least, through the first half of district play, West Mesquite is averaging just 27.5 points per game. They are yet to score 35 points in a district ball game. So you take 27.5 points per game, you average that out per quarter, that's 6.8 points per quarter.
Yeah, they didn't exactly light up those 6th and 7th place teams recently either.
No, so even their 2 wins, their 2 wins have come against the 2 teams that they're at least ahead of in the standings, Forney and Terrell. They beat Forney 30-29 and Terrell 34-31. So while on the one hand, the offense, the scoring leaves a little bit to be desired, you at least have to give them credit on the defensive end of the floor that they were able to hold those teams in check, just as well. But this does feel like a district kind of like on in Monday's podcast, and we're talking about the 6A Mesquite ISD ISD district, in which it feels like there's a bit of a line of demarcation between the top 4 and the bottom 3 in that district, so to speak. Because like I just mentioned, Briggs and Perry averaging 32 points per game in district by themselves, more so than at least 5 points per game more so than all of West Mesquite. So if the Lady Wranglers are going to to threaten either Kaufman or Lancaster, one of those teams for that last playoff spot, it's going to require some more consistency on the offensive end of the floor. So that is a look at a few of the districts that are just past the midpoint of the district schedule. We've got a couple others that are one is way past the midpoint because there's a million schools in that district, and the other is creeping up on the midpoint because there's like 6. So we'll talk some Frisco ISD, we'll talk Lovejoy and McKinney North in a bit, but first gotta shine that student athlete spotlight, and for this we went out to Lake Dallas for a talk with the aforementioned Dorian Norris, perhaps the best two-way player at Lake Dallas, one of the big reasons why the Lady Falcons are in second place in District 8-5A. Taylor Ragland had a chance to catch up with Dorian Norris to talk a bit about her season and the young Lady Falcons and their progress, and we will see what she had to say after a word from this sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
How's it going, everybody? This is Taylor Ragland out here at Lake Dallas with Lake Dallas girls basketball junior star Dorian Norris. And the big news for you guys is after an 0-2 start to district, including a loss to district leading the Colony, undefeated the Colony, you guys have won 5 games in a row to be 5-2, right behind those Lady Cougars in 8-5A. So what's kind of been behind the turnaround for you guys, and how are y'all feeling right now?
It's basically been defense, but we're feeling good right now. But it's basically been defense, like our boxing out and getting back on defense and stuff. That's what we've been working on in practice right now, and all we've been doing basically is improving, like this entire season. So, yeah.
Personally, how much do you focus on? I know when I cover you guys, you're the one in there grabbing rebounds a lot. You like to get inside, use your size, use your athleticism. So, what have you been focusing on this year, and how do you feel like your defensive game has grown?
Well, defense is our main focus on each and every practice. Like, we have to, our mentality is focus, and we have to, focus on defense, getting back. And I really do use my height to my advantage. Like, boxing out is really our focus, but I really like to out-jump other girls and stuff. So.
Right. You guys, you and Josephine Elliott are both juniors that have been around a while, kind of the veteran presence, even though you guys still have a year left. But, a lot of young contributors on this team as well, a real mix of kind of old and new faces.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Buss, point guard, Allie Buchanan inside, Georgia Elliott, Joe's little sister, girls like that. So, what have you seen from kind of that freshman class especially, and what they've brought to the team this year?
Okay, honestly, the freshmen, they've been a blessing, honestly. Like, we were kind of nervous about next year because we lost a lot of seniors last year. So these freshmen coming in, they played together a lot last year, like on AAU and stuff, and that really helped us this year. But the freshmen, like Mackenzie Buss, she's been really driving, getting to the goal a lot. And, we kind of been there to rebound if she misses it, which she usually doesn't. And Georgia with the 3-point shooting, and Allie is a 3-point shooter also, and she's really good in the post. And all 3 of our starting freshmen, they're so good, and also Bailey coming in and stuff, she's really good.
I mentioned you and Joe, being juniors, having played together for a while now, and kind of assuming the leadership role. This season, how do you feel like you guys, like I said, obviously you still have a year left, but how do you feel that your roles as leaders have kind of grown, and what do you look to do as far as leadership on and off the court?
Well, me and Joe have been playing AAU a long time ago. We've been playing forever, but our leadership is really vital this year with all these freshmen. But we kind of clicked a lot with the freshmen, so leadership hasn't really been a problem. But we still our voices are heard and stuff. So.
Right. Another change for you guys this year is obviously Catherine Madison coming in as head coach. Familiar with the program, being an assistant and all that good stuff, but it's always different when you're the one at the helm and leading the program, kind of implementing your system. So what changes have you noticed, and what do you like about her and her style?
Well, we kind of scratched everything from last year. We love Coach Lee, but Coach Madison's been really great, and this year it's all about defense. So Coach Madison's been really great. She really cares about us and She really stands up for us, like stuff. She talks to the refs if there's like been a bad call or something. But Coach Matt, she's really great, and we love Coach Richards also. So.
Right. Speaking about Coach Madison, you said he kind of scrapped everything and started fresh a little bit. What exactly do you feel like is most different, especially on the defensive side of the ball?
Mostly boxing out is it's a really big focus this year. That's really
just boxing out how that works. For you, when I come watch you guys, a lot of times you'll have a double-double as far as points and rebounds, but you guys, I feel like when you're going well, get scoring from kind of up and down the lineup and get a lot of people contributing. So how important is that to you guys and to your ability to win basketball games?
I've been shooting a lot more recently, and so has everybody else, but Joe and her sister, they hit a lot of big threes, when it's like on the line games, and we kind of make those big plays. And wait, what was the question?
No, you're good. I guess the last thing and maybe the biggest question for you guys is obviously set up well for playoffs. The Colony coming up on Friday, kind of a rematch for you guys, a chance to beat one of the teams that's gotten you, one of the two teams. So what are you excited about? What are you guys preparing for, and how ready are you guys for kind of the stretch run and probably the postseason?
We're definitely striving for playoffs and past the first round this year, hopefully. But we're looking forward to facing the Colony, and they're like a really big threat, obviously, because they're first and we're second, and we want to really take it to them next game, and
Absolutely. All right, Dorian. Well, thank you for your time. Good luck the rest of the way, and I'll throw it back to the second half of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Dorian Norris for taking the time to chat with Taylor for our Student Athlete Spotlight. And gentlemen, let's round out our 5A girls basketball mid-district progress report by looking at a couple districts that all are either creeping up on the mid-district or well past it. Because Frisco ISD is just adding, I think they just added 2 more high schools in the time during that Dorian Norris interview.
They are 14 now.
Yeah, they are 12 games into their district schedule in that 10-team behemoth of a district. So let's talk Frisco ISD, show 9 5A some love. To recap those standings, you have a Lone Star doing the Lone Star thing in first place, undefeated at 12-0. 12-0, that just seems really impressive to amass 12 wins period in a district to this point. Nevertheless, they are 1 game ahead of Liberty, second place at 11-1. You got Centennial at 9-3 in third place. Memorial, shout out to Memorial, first year program, 8-4 at fourth place. And then Reedy in fifth place at 6-6. Lebanon Trail, another young program, at 5-7. A rare tie in this district. Seventh place tie between Independence and Heritage at 4-8. Wakeland is in ninth place at 1-11, and Frisco bringing up the rear at 0-12. Obviously, the story of this district is the state-ranked battle between Lone Star and Liberty. I guess, Brian, how do you kind of make heads or tails of what those two programs have done up to this point? And do you see Lone Star running the table in this district? Did Liberty show enough in that first meeting to where they could conceivably, give them a crooked number in the loss column? Or
Liberty was winning by 15 in the second half
against
Lone Star, and that was a heck of a game. I know we've talked about it a bunch here in the office, but Liberty should have won. And then Adriana Quezada, who we've talked about a lot, she's kind of like the replacement for Mallory Adams, who's now doing big things at San Diego State, breaking all these freshman records over there, Division I college basketball. But Quezada's come in and she's done a phenomenal job. The 2 MVP candidates in this district, you got to say, are Quezada and Randy Thompson of Liberty. Those are the 2 best players. They're on the 2 best teams. It's only fitting. And in that game against Liberty, Quezada was kind of non-existent. She was missing a bunch of shots. She was forcing a lot of shots. And then she came alive in the fourth quarter. Had the game-tying assist on a fast break to send it to overtime with seconds left. And then in overtime hit the game winner with like 4 seconds left to win the game in overtime. That was a low-scoring game, 36-34, because those 2 teams, they have the offensive firepower, but defensively, they give up. Liberty, I know at the beginning of the week when I was crunching numbers on Monday, Liberty was allowing 24 points per game. They're so well coached with Ross Reedy. They have a senior-laden team. And then Tuesday night, they give up 9 points to Frisco. And that's
nice.
Frisco's and having a down year, but Liberty's just that good. Give up 9. They won 58-9. They could have won 120-9. Yeah, if they wanted to, maybe even less than 9. No knock on Frisco, but Liberty and Lone Star just that good. Well, it's only fitting that they're the 2 state-ranked teams in this district. Centennial is kind of in a tricky spot in 3rd place. They're kind of where Reedy was last year. Good enough to make the playoffs, good enough to compete with teams like Liberty and Lone Star. Centennial almost beat Lone Star again. They went to overtime the first time they played, and then Tuesday night they had a rematch. Lone Star won 60-54. So Centennial's figuring something out with Lone Star, but yet Liberty, the one time they played Centennial, I was at that game, they blew them out of the water. Blew them out by 20 points. And so it's like trying to make sense of it all, but I don't see Lone Star losing until it's only fitting that they play last game of district game of the season, February 5th, when they rematch at Lone Star, and I don't see Liberty losing again. Centennial could give them a game in the rematch because that game will be at Centennial, but I just pick how many games will they play? Lone Star will be like 15-1 or whatever it is, and Lone Star will be 16-0, Liberty will be 15-1. So many district games when they rematch. For I guess the district title or share the district title or what have you after a million games, but. Yeah, this district is definitely Liberty, Lone Star. Shout out to Memorial also. Yeah. Because when a 10-team district, it's in an 18 district, it's so hard to make the playoffs. 10 teams, it's only like you got to be on a Lone Star Liberty caliber, state rank caliber to make the playoffs. And there they are, 1st-year program, no seniors at Memorial, and they're 8-4, 4th place. They, barring any major upsets down the stretch, they're the 4th seed in that district come playoff time. Lebanon Trail, they're having a good year also, 5-7. I haven't been able to see Lebanon or Memorial in person this year, but they could be a team on the radar definitely for next year once they have that first senior group. They could be competing up there for 1, 2, 3 in the playoff mix.
I'm curious. Lone Star is obviously 12-0. They're playing well, but you mentioned Mallory Adams. Not having her, I'm guessing she was the best player their program's ever had.
For sure.
And then, Randy Thompson, I saw them play the Colony in the playoffs last year. She had missed over a year, but it looks like she's back to full strength now. Do you think these teams, last year they both made regionals, do you think these teams have it to where they could both be in the regional tournament again this season?
Yes, because Randy Thompson is at the top of her game. So she missed her sophomore year with an ACL injury, and she was out the entire season. She came back last year, and she still had a brace on, doing this and doing that. She was kind of coming in as a 6th man every now and then.
She showed out in that Colony game.
But this year, she is the woman. She is that guy on that team. But there's a ton of role players on that Liberty team. But before I dive into that, Lone Star, they only graduated really out of their main players. They only graduated Mallory Adams. Yes, those are heavy shoes to fill, but you have Quezada. She's she's going to UTSA next year. She's a D1 college basketball player. She's 5'10". She can handle the ball. She can shoot jumpers. She can dominate in the paint. And they also bring back Leah Harris, Mia Deck, Kayla Richardson. These are phenomenal guards. Their wing play on defense is stifling. They are suffocating. And Mia Deck, her little sister, Kyla Deck, is now on the team. She's a freshman. And Kyla Deck, she's top 3 in scoring for Lone Star every, any given night. And Mia Deck is just one of those competitors. Mia Deck may not drop 20 to 30 points like Adriana Quezada is capable of doing, but Mia Deck is just one of those girls that she was also invited for the All-American game along with Quezada.
And Randy Thompson.
Yeah. 3 of the best players in that district for sure, no doubt about it. So they have the role players, they have their defensive stoppers, they have their scorers, they have their jump shooters. They have Coach Katie Stitton, one of the most electric and in-your-face coaches that there is, and she's awesome. She knows what she's doing. Coach Ross Reedy knows what he's doing at Liberty. In Liberty, they're not the biggest team. They have a bunch of guards that are 5'3", 5'4". Kaylin Lay, Mara Casey, Mackenzie Glover. Players like that. But they have players playing their role. Alyssa Nair and Kelsey Kurek is so underrated in this district. I know I talked to Coach Reedy at the beginning of the year. I was like, so how good is Randy this year? She front runner for MVP? What's the scoop? And he was like, Kelsey Kurek. Don't count her out. And she had a double-double in that game against Lone Star. And it was she would have been an unsung hero in that game because Thompson didn't score a lot. I think she was held to 6 points in that game because of Lone Star's perimeter defense is that good. So I don't know. Both these teams are more than capable of making a run. To answer your question, Justin, they're more than capable to to reach the regional.
At the very least, it'll help that Mansfield Timberview is no longer in that region anymore.
Get those guys out there.
A lot of the power, because I'm looking over, I got the state rankings right here. Lone Star is actually the highest ranked of Region 2 programs in 5A right now. Looks like a lot of they're only 12th, in the TABC poll, but a lot of the strength has kind of migrated over to Region 1, your Mansfield schools and the like. So yeah, I mean, it stands to reason that Lone Star might be able to, at the very least, work their way into maybe a 4 or 5 round playoff venture. Let's see. Also, I noticed, we're talking about, Memorial and Lebanon Trail and, Reedy as well. You have the 3 youngest programs in Frisco ISD that are 4th, 5th, and 6th in that district.
Well, Reedy made the playoffs last year, but then they graduated Mary Rose Foster. They graduated Christina Mason. Mary Rose Foster was their post player. She's an animal. She's a beast. Double machine. And then Christina Mason, your prototypical point guard, finds the open man, can shoot, all that stuff. But they graduated those 2 players, and Jaden Boss, one of their stud volleyball players at Reedy, she's going to SMU, and she's only focusing on volleyball this year. She would have been one of, if not their best players this year, at least top 3 best players on the basketball team, so she's not playing. You lose those 3 starters right there, and they're still 6 and 6. They're 5th in this really loaded Frisco district, so that's saying a lot about them. So if Memorial doesn't come along, who knows? Maybe Reedy's still in that 4th spot.
Whereas you have, 9-5A has played 12 games apiece. You have District 10-5A that has played 1/3 that amount. As a 6-team district that just began district play, it feels like last week. This district is only 4 games old, so let's round out the podcast with a look at this teeny tiny district, which is you have Wiley East in first place at 4-0, Denison in second place at 3-1. You've got a tie for third place between McKinney North and Princeton at 2-2. Lovejoy in 5th place at 1-3, and Sherman in 6th place at 0-4. At first glance, just kind of watching the early machinations of this district, this was kind of a Wiley East Denison district, and those 2 were kind of handling the rest of the, those other 4 teams. You had Wiley East, hand Denison its first district loss on Tuesday. That's no surprise. The Lady Raiders were state ranked for just about all of last season and still returned plenty of talent from that team. But then you've got so you have those top 2, which are kind of the clear, 1, 2, in whatever order. You've got Sherman in 6th place.
I remember Kendrick referring to them as a, quote, layup, so I believe they're settled for 6th.
Sherman has taken its share of double-digit losses so far in the district schedule. The real subplot is going to be how those 3rd, 4th, and 5th spots materialize between North, Princeton, Lovejoy. Early on, it's not a stretch to say that if Wiley East and Denison are, who at least early on they appear to be, that the teams with the best head-to-head record among those next 3 schools are going to be the ones that grab those last 2 playoff spots, since it doesn't appear that either any of them are going to be tripped up against Sherman. In the case of Lovejoy, for example, you look at Lovejoy, which they took double-digit losses to. Actually, no, they didn't take a double-digit loss. They lost by 9 to Wiley East, and they lost by 28 to Denison. But then they turn around and beat Sherman 67-22. So that's kind of that's the 5th place team versus the 6th place team right now. So there's a 45-point difference right now between 5th and 6th place. But at the very least now, if you're just kind of looking at where North, Princeton, and Lovejoy stack up, McKinney North has the upper hand on Princeton just by virtue of having a head-to-head win in a game that went right down to the wire, 76-74 in favor of the Lady Bulldogs. The story of McKinney North this year has been you hear the cliche 1-2 punch thrown around. Amaria Fields and Chelsea Wooten of McKinney North are perhaps the most true embodiment of the 1-2 punch. Those 2 had against Princeton in that aforementioned win against Princeton. They scored 62 of the team's 76 points, including 42 of their 47 points in the second half. They combined for 40 of the 47 points that they scored against Wiley East. In their blowout win over Sherman, they had 47 out of 74. These 2 players are routinely scoring upwards of 75% of their point totals, and that's not even accounting for any assists they may rack up. It stands to reason that those 2 might have anywhere anywhere from 85 to 90% of their total offense, either scores or assists. I mean, it is, yes, so they will...
Pretty reminiscent of what the Colony has going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, North goes as Fields and Wooten go, and then with and that's obviously that has helped their case greatly so far. But then you look at a team like Lovejoy, which Lovejoy was one of the better teams in the Metroplex at the 5A level last year. They were really fun. I mean, I got to see them, beat Wiley East early last season, and there was a really, really sharp, high IQ team. But they really were. A lot of that production came from a talented cast of seniors that have since graduated.
I saw them play in the playoffs against Prosper, and they were no match for Prosper. Not many teams were.
That was Prosper.
But, so maybe it wasn't a good gauge of how good they were.
But so they started off the season really strong, but then they kind of tailed off a little bit later in the season. So that's probably more symptomatic of that. But yeah, I mean, they graduated some really strong seniors, some district MVP caliber, seniors and whatnot. So, and what's been left over is a team that has only 4 seniors on the roster. So it's a young team that still has a lot of room for growth. As far as veteranship, Carson McFadden's a player that has the bulk of the veteran minutes within that core. And then you've got some promising underclassmen, players like Grace Bennett, who had a big game against Princeton, but was their only player in double figures. Grace Bennett had 22 of their 49 points. McFadden had come on strong with a couple 21-point outings in the games prior, but wasn't able to get it going against Princeton. And you think that in a game that they lost 59-49, against the Lady Panthers, that a more familiar performance from McFadden could have very well made the difference. But nevertheless, though, that sets Lovejoy back. That puts them 1-3, and they've already got a loss against one of those teams that, frankly, they can't afford to lose to. It's not so much the loss. You expect the losses to East and Denison are going to come, but it's how you fare against McKinney North and Princeton that are ultimately going to make the difference in how that they fare this season. They get North on Friday, get a chance to even the score there, but if they drop to 0-2, drop to 1-4 at the midpoint of this district, that's just going to be tough to overcome. So, but nevertheless, a much different. Like we're already, the schedule's already 4 games old, and you already kind of have an idea of how the district's going to pan out. Whereas in Frisco ISD, I mean, it's like I said, it's what 1 and 2 is going to be, but it's those 3, 4, 5 spots that are all still very much in flux. It's odd just kind of assessing a 16 district versus a 10 team, and just how different these narratives can unfold.
One team's going to play 18 games, and the other's going to play 10.
And then for Liberty and Lone Star, 14 of those 18 games are just absolute blowouts.
Yeah. So
it is what it is.
Yep. So yes, that is a look at Frisco ISD, and I get McKinney North, Lovejoy, the 2 most contrasting districts size-wise. Are there any in the 5A classification? Are there any more 6-team districts in the 5A classification? So I'm looking over. Is not
District 4 5A looks like a 6-team district, but that's
a 5-team district. Oh well, but nevertheless, one of the smallest districts in the 5A classification, right up against one of the largest.
And I wouldn't be surprised if District 10 5A they don't win a playoff game in by district round against the Frisco district.
We'll see.
Could be a hot take. I don't know. Could come back to bite me. We'll see.
Depends on how you're believing if Memorial's ready to shock a district champion.
Memorial did play Wiley East in the second game of the season and lost by almost 30. So, but that was the second game of the season. Yeah. So we'll see. Memorial's improved greatly since then. That
is a look at some mid-district progress reports. So we have touched on 6A on Monday, 5A today. So that'll do it at the very least for a mid-district girls basketball recast. We still got the boys side of the hardwood as they wrap up the first half of district play this week, and we will hand out some mid-district stuff with 6A boys on Monday, 5A boys next Thursday, so make sure y'all check those podcasts out. In the meantime, folks, that will do it for this edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. For Matt Welch, appreciate Justin and Brian for tagging along. Folks, you enjoy the rest of your week, and we will talk to y'all later.